Today's story is about the unexpected resolution of the disappearance of a Japanese female teacher, Ishikawa Chieko, 26 years after her disappearance. On August 21st, 2004, a man visited a police station in Adachi City, Tokyo metropolis, Japan. The person who visited the police station was a 68-year-old man named Shinya Wada, who suddenly confessed to the police that he was the culprit who murdered Ishikawa Chieko, a female teacher who disappeared 26 years ago. Naturally, the police were well aware of the case of Ishikawa Chieko, who disappeared suddenly 26 years ago. The police were astonished by the claim that she was already murdered, and they were equally surprised that the culprit who murdered her suddenly came to the police station to confess. The police decided to hear the motive behind the crime from the suspect Shinya Wada later, and initially they asked where the body of the missing teacher Ishikawa was. In response to the police's question, Shinya smiled maliciously and said he would explain where the body was buried. Shockingly, the suspect Shinya told the police that the body of the missing Ishikawa was buried under the kitchen floor of his own house. The police temporarily detained him after his confession and immediately dispatched to his house the next day, August 22, 2004, to confirm if Ishikawa was really buried there. Upon arriving at Shinya's house, the police began searching his house, and they decided to start digging the kitchen floor, which was the location Shinya mentioned first. As they dug up the kitchen floor, the police found something wrapped in a waterproof sheet. The police carefully unwrapped the object wrapped in the waterproof sheet to see what it was. Upon removing the sheet, the police screamed in horror and sat down abruptly. What the police found inside the waterproof sheet was a considerably decomposed skeleton. Additionally, around the body, the police found belongings with the name Ishikawa Chieko written on them. The police considered the discovered items as belongings of Ishikawa, who disappeared 26 years ago, and they were convinced that the body was indeed hers. The police immediately sent the body to the laboratory for confirmation and requested DNA testing to confirm if it was really Ishikawa. Sometime later, the laboratory informed the police that the DNA test confirmed the body belonged to Ishikawa Chieko. The police urgently arrested the suspect Shinya and decided to reinvestigate this missing case that had remained unsolved for 26 years. Ishikawa Chieko was born in 1949 in Hokkaido, Japan. She majored in art education at Hokkaido University, and after graduating, she moved to Tokyo, Japan, and started her teaching career at an elementary school in Tokyo. She was always considerate to her colleagues, often staying late at work with a smiling face. Her colleagues at the time described her as kind and gentle. During the summer vacation period, she had to go to work at the school. On August 14, 1978, she arrived at the school in the morning. Since it was during the school vacation, there were only a few teachers and staff at the school. The next day, on August 15, 1978, she did not show up at the school. It was unusual for her, as she had never been absent or late since starting to work at the elementary school. Her colleagues thought something was wrong when she didn't show up for work that day, without any reason. A colleague teacher tried calling Ishikawa's home, where she lived alone, but she didn't answer the phone. She continued to be absent from work. On August 24, 1978, a call was made to her parents' house. The caller was the principal of the elementary school where she worked, informing the family that Ishikawa had not been coming to work for several days and asking if she was at home. Her family was puzzled by the principal's call. With no idea about her whereabouts, her family immediately reported her as missing to the police. Upon receiving the report, the police forcefully entered her home where she lived alone. They found her belongings, money, and especially her important items still in the house. The police concluded that she hadn't intentionally hidden herself and likely had disappeared due to some crime, so they started investigating. At the time, Ishikawa had no boyfriend and rarely interacted with people outside of school. The only people who knew about her were her fellow teachers and staff at the school. The police called in all the school staff and teachers for questioning, but no decisive evidence emerged. However, during this time, the security guard at the elementary school where she worked, Shinya Wada, suddenly came to the police station and claimed that he had seen her before she disappeared. He said he saw her on August 14th, 1978, around 4:30 p.m., while patrolling the school corridor near the cafeteria on the first floor. However, he mentioned that he hadn't seen her after that. Apart from his statement, the police didn't find any additional testimony or evidence. The police conducted an investigation but ultimately couldn't find Ishikawa's whereabouts, so they classified the case as unsolved. 9 years later, on November 29, 1987, Korean Air Flight 858, departing from Baghdad, Iraq, and passing through Abu Dhabi and Bangkok on its way to Korea, exploded over the Indian Ocean. The South Korean government concluded it was a mid-air bombing ordered by North Korea. The investigation revealed that it was carried out by special operatives Kim Seung-il and Kim Hyun-hee, disguised as Japanese individuals under North Korean orders. At that time, there was speculation in Japan that Kim Hyun-hee, the perpetrator of the bombing, might have been Ishikawa, the Japanese language teacher who went missing during her teaching tenure in North Korea. During the late 1970s, North Korea had abducted numerous Japanese individuals to teach Japanese language and culture to their operatives. This claim gained traction with the suggestion that Ishikawa had been kidnapped to North Korea for the same purpose. Her family believed she might still be alive in North Korea and actively participated in efforts to find her, attending meetings for Japanese victims and seeking their daughter. Then, on September 17, 2002, as part of a summit meeting in Pyongyang following a visit by the Japanese Prime Minister, 5 Japanese nationals who had been living in North Korea were allowed to return to Japan. However, unfortunately, Ishikawa was not among them. 26 years after the incident, on August 21, 2004, the school security guard Shinya, who had last seen Ishikawa and testified to this fact, appeared at the police station and confessed to killing her, attracting renewed attention to the case in Japan. Shinya was 42 years old at the time of the incident and 68 years old when he confessed. He had worked in a factory after graduating from high school and later began working as a security guard through an introduction from his wife, who worked at the school cafeteria. On the day of the incident, August 14, 1978, Ishikawa and Shinya were both working at the school. Shinya testified that around 4:30 p.m. that day, as he walked through the corridor near the cafeteria on the first floor, Ishikawa confronted him, accusing him of blocking her path. He said he didn't respond to her out of fear of disciplinary action if he caused trouble. Frustrated by his lack of response, she allegedly struck him in the face with her bag. He eventually couldn't contain his anger and got into a heated argument with her, escalating into a physical fight where they ended up wrestling, he said. Unfortunately, he claimed he accidentally killed her during this altercation, saying everything was a mistake. When his motive for the crime was exposed in the media, Ishikawa's family vehemently denied his claims, stating that she was never someone who would insult or resort to violence against others. Even his colleagues came forward, saying it was impossible for Ishikawa to have verbally abused and hit the security guard, bolstering the family's claims about Ishikawa's character. Shinya revealed that he had a shocking secret at the time, stating that he was being harassed by the school staff. He claimed they always treated him poorly, using informal language and insults. After committing the crime, he hid Ishikawa's body in the trunk of his car until the end of his shift, then took her body to his home after work. He said he wrapped her body in a waterproof sheet while his wife was briefly out, then spent 4 hours digging a hole in the kitchen floor on the first floor with a shovel before burying her body and belongings inside. As soon as the burial was done, he restored the kitchen floor to its original state and lived above her remains, keeping it a complete secret from his wife for 26 years. He mentioned seeing Ishikawa's spirit afterward, and how difficult it was for him because of her spirit. To cope with the ordeal, he constantly reassured himself that he had done nothing wrong and gradually began to forget about the incident as time passed. Until late March 1991, Shinya worked at the same school for 13 years before transferring to another school and continued working as a security guard until retiring in March 1995. He lived in the same house for a total of 26 years, starting from when he buried Ishikawa until he confessed. After the crime, he raised the height of his home's fence, installed iron fences on top of the wall, and set up CCTV cameras around the house, making it nearly impossible to see inside from the outside. He avoided interacting with people for 26 years, and when neighborhood kids came near his house, he would shout and chase them away with a bat. He even received packages at the door himself and took out the trash instead of letting his wife do it. People were curious about why he suddenly confessed after hiding the crime for 26 years, and his unexpected motive for confession shocked Japan. It wasn't out of remorse, but due to special circumstances. In 1994, Shinya's house was targeted for demolition due to road expansion plans, prompting an eviction notice. If his house were to be demolished, the hidden body would be discovered, exposing his crime. Realizing that the 15-year statute of limitations for murder in Japan had passed, allowing him to avoid punishment completely, he decided to confess. Using the compensation money from the land, he bought a new house and moved. He confessed a month after moving. Unfortunately, by then, the statute of limitations had expired, and Shinya could not be prosecuted. On April 11, 2005, Ishikawa's surviving family filed a civil lawsuit against Shinya, demanding approximately $150,000 in compensation for damages. Shinya argued that the civil lawsuit was invalid since the statute of limitations had already expired, but the family responded that the civil lawsuit should be calculated from the discovery of the body onward. On September 26, 2006, the Tokyo District Court did not acknowledge the right to claim damages for the murder due to the statute of limitations being over. However, it found Shinya guilty of depriving the family of the opportunity to mourn Ishikawa by concealing her body and ordered him to compensate the family a total of $20,000 for the offense of concealing a corpse. He appealed the decision, but on January 31, 2008, the Tokyo High Court overturned the previous ruling and ordered him to pay $270,000 to the family. He appealed again, but on April 28, 2009, the Supreme Court rejected his appeal and finalized the ruling. He then compensated Ishikawa's family with the money received from land compensation. Throughout the trials, Shinya never once apologized to Ishikawa's family. The case outraged the Japanese public, leading to the complete abolition of the statute of limitations for murder by the Japanese government in April 2010. In interviews with the media, Shinya stated that he still had no intention of apologizing to Ishikawa's family and threatened to sue anyone who posted his photos or videos online without permission. Currently, Shinya's house is surrounded by high walls and has over 10 CCTV cameras installed around it, giving it a prison-like feel according to observers. Although the Ishikawa Chieko disappearance case, which nearly remained unsolved, eventually identified the culprit, the statute of limitations prevented the perpetrator from facing punishment.